By not sending the U.S. military to convey philanthropic guide sooner, President Trump has unwittingly turned into the promoter and boss for stretching out the privilege to vote in favor of U.S. presidential chosen people in the general decision to Puerto Ricans. No, he has not, yet, grasped the long-standing Republican Party board favoring Puerto Rican statehood. Rather, he has left numerous islanders feeling so sad they are escaping to the territory, and, alongside it, gathering the chance to vote in favor of President. Marking some Puerto Rican political pioneers as thankless rapscallions, and by holding up to act, Trump is persuading urgent islanders to escape to the territory, generally Florida, where they naturally can vote in favor of all government officeholders. Indeed, even as President Donald Trump arrived at Muniz Air National Guard in Carolina, Puerto Rico, Tuesday evening, the initial 3 alleviation focuses opened in Miami and Orlando to welcome Puerto Rican newcomers to Florida. Since Puerto Ricans have an indistinguishable appropriate from mainlanders to move any place in the U.S., Borincanos, as they call themselves, can just vote with their feet. No unpredictable printed material, no international ID, just move to Miami and enlist to vote. Simple peasy. The cataclysmic event is quickening a pattern officially in progress. Plain Lopez, leader of Metro Orlando's Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, assessed as of late that 250,000 people may leave the island. However, different investigators who know Puerto Rico say that the quantities of Puerto Ricans who may withdraw for the terrain is between 500,000, 1 million amid the following 3-5 years. Like occupants of Washington, D.C., Puerto Ricans are U.S. natives, subject to military enrollment who don't have portrayal in the U.S. Congress. Not at all like inhabitants of D.C., Puerto Ricans can't vote in favor of the U.S. president. This irregularity gets from the inceptions of the Commonwealth, which turned into a U.S. protectorate in 1899, as a component of the Spanish-American War goods. Congress built up the peculiar framework that influences islanders to full subjects in 1917, yet as occupants they pay no government. Individual salary imposes and can't vote in favor of the U.S. president in the general decision, albeit both the Democratic and Republican gatherings incorporate islanders in the presidential primaries. They vote to designate, however, not choose the leader of their nation. Try not to be amazed on the off chance that you didn't know the status. A current survey found that not as much as half of Americans realize that Puerto Rican islanders are U.S. natives from birth. The island's sole non-voting delegate in the U.S. Congress, Resident Commissioner Jennifer Gonzalez-Colon, is a Republican, star statehood advocate and, notwithstanding prior being on Trump's rundown of foes, remained close by on Tuesday, alongside Governor Ricardo Rossello. They both commended the government reaction to the catastrophe, however said that they plan to see more elected help for the island. By differentiate, the mayor of Aguadilla, additionally a Republican, challenged Trump to locate any government specialists in his crushed group. That was a stamped distinction from the representative's June remarks supporting statehood. "You close the last, disgraceful section of expansionism," he said. "It looks bad in the 21st century." So far, more than 100,000 have fled the gutted island since the tempest hit, a tempest that may cost the island $45.90 billion. This week, the House Energy and Commerce Subcommittee will consider $1 billion in Medicaid financing for Puerto Rico, a distribution anticipated that would go in mid-October. Some have conjectured that the political status of Puerto Rico will move on account of the present emergency to a move for statehood, a position on which Governor Rossello crusaded. Submissions for political status have occurred for a considerable length of time, and amid that time, the vote in favor of freedom stayed in the single digits. Amid the 80s and 90s, the vote amongst statehood and republic, the present status, has been pretty much equally isolated, with federation winning the day. In June, the latest submission occurred. 97% of the island voted in favor of statehood in a vote in which a few gatherings boycotted, and the general number of votes was under 25% of qualified voters. However, even prepared examiners know that a Republican-drove Senate is probably not going to help a move that would give the island 4 congressional agents and 2 senators, who might likely be Democrats and would include a reallocation of seats in the Congress, where another appraisal would most likely include the loss of seats in the Northeast. From 2001-2008, a large portion of 1 million Puerto Ricans, to a great extent Catholic, traditionalist and Democratic gathering white-collar class families went to the U.S. because of a few monetary variables. The expectation of the disposal of a key duty exception, the 936 expense, and because of the beginning of the money-related emergency in the U.S., which had decimating sway on the island. Despite the island's status, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, will undoubtedly regard the island the same as a state. New territory entries from the island are likely, examiners say, to be more intrigued by mainstreaming, searching for occupations and might bring down levels of pay. Puerto Ricans, paying little heed to party or political leanings, are generally enthusiastic. For instance, they have served in the military in more prominent numbers per populace than Americans and in all wars. One expert, too favored not to be referred to, let me know, they may have felt insulted by the president, yet at last, he appeared. Puerto Ricans have felt that Washington was eased back to act, and Trump's remarks in Puerto Rico showed up tone hard of hearing to numerous. He gave himself an A+ on the organization's execution. He positively contrasted the quantity of passings with Katrina. He disclosed to Puerto Ricans that they have tossed our financial plan somewhat askew, and, in the most well-known arrangement of tweets, he called some of its government officials thankless rascals. These new voters from the island are settling in swing states on the terrain, some in the Upper East, others in the South, principally Florida, the Midwest and the West, as indicated by a Pew Research report, distributed 3 years back. A few experts figure it will be in or more for Trump, others figure it will turn the tide for Democrats. In any case, paying little respect to guesses, Hurricane Maria has moved the socioeconomics of both the island of Puerto Rico and the terrain of the U.S. For the time being, the staggering deficiency of sustenance, water and power left in the wake of Hurricane Maria has started warmed trades between San Juan's mayor and Trump with feedback that the U.S. isn't doing what's necessary. The more extended-term impact on the legislative issues of the Puerto Rican vote, island and territory, would screw a confrontation on the issue of strengthening. Will it simply be voting rights or full statehood? Time, and maybe the following sea tempest season, will tell.